really interesting between teams on Lair today. Certainly, we could see some inspiration being taken by these teams. The late round Warden was an interesting strat coming out from Furia in our last game. Some mute bans have been seen all throughout the day, both on Lair and on other maps. Instead of doing any of that, we'll start with the most predictable bans on the game, with both Monty and Kaid being removed. Bandit Blackbeard would probably be the most standard options, and we'll get one of the two. Ying, honestly, not a huge surprise to be taken out anyways. Maybe they don't want us to have the same thing happen to them that happened to Los, where you end up with a Warden ban and Ying on the board. Never a comfortable spot to be in. So we'll get right into it. Round number one, beginning between NIP and Black Dragons. I want to touch quickly on what was said on the desk by Leo, because I thought it was a really great point about Machina needing to step up. He has been one of the most talented players in South America in the past. I've really liked what he's been able to do. So hopefully we can see him stepping up and having a big game. He almost reminds me of a younger Fantasy in the way that he was able to really explode into the game and have some big moments as a young, bragging, aggressive player. Machina has done much the same, but last stage we didn't see many shades of that.
Machina is undoubtedly a terrific player, and he's still young, still growing, will improve. And I think improvement really is something that we've come back to through multiple parts of today's matches. So we looked at the very first game that we had today, and what did we do? We talked about growth for ENX. We looked at our second match of today, and what did we talk about? We talked about growth from 9Z. Then we focused a little bit on our third match, and we said Fury is probably not going to show much growth, but Los certainly could. Sure. They did. Dark looked like a great addition to this roster. Now with Nip and Black Dragons, I don't know if we're going to look at Nip from a growth perspective. Yes, I think more time for that roster to gel is always good. But Black Dragons are going to be the team that has the question mark associated with them. W7M and Liquid will also have its own growth storyline because Liquid has a whole new roster, and that will round out our play day. That'll be match number 5 coming up after we finish this game of Lair. And who knows, we'll probably go to Lair yet again for that 5th and final match.
Azami inside of operations has been a common trend today and gets a brilliant first pick, shutting down Fantasy, the young entry flagger on Black Dragons. It's Hornet going to be getting that opening pick instead of the player we might have expected to come from, Machina, playing on the other side of the map at the moment. Nice little start to this round. Really important player to pick off. Not a huge round for Twitch maybe as an operator, but just the player being removed I think is good signs for Black Dragons. Now, if you're NIP, you need to maybe refocus this attack. Operations looks a little bit too scary, so you can start to work from down below. Pino will eventually have to move his way up the lobby stairs if he wants to return to the site from this position, or green stairs would be his other option. His teammates are still all outside the building, so they've got to choose a lane at some point. This time is not doing him any favors, continuing to tick down.
I haven't really seen a lot of Azami today. She's either been banned or not favored by some teams. So, I mean, not that I like Azami as an operator. I think she's got a lot of flexibility and a lot of potential, but it is nice to see her back. Ates is going to try to tear through some of these Black Dragons players and not find very much success. Aska's taken some damage on the side of Black Dragons, but that's really just it. Khan's firing away with both of those as fixating bolts, now called fire arrows, as what little remained of Ast was fought. Rare also dies with Wizard as well, just trading back and forth. Both these teams coming to blows with 40 seconds left on the clock, and Nip has equaled the score as Hornet gets taken down. Machina and Miracle are the last two standing for Black Dragons, as it looked like Machina actually breathed in some of the smoke that was tossed out by his teammate. With 25 seconds left, Miracle can throw out 2 of those toxic babes. Not a lot of utility left for Nip other than the smokes from the Capitao. They thought they had the all clear to walk right into Rainbow Six room, but it was a bad idea, not close enough. It will cost Hates his life, and now it's Khans to wander in and potentially meet the same fate. He sure will. Machina's credited with the kill, though, not the smoke, and a good lockout from Black Dragons to kick things off on what might be yet another defender-sided layer.
Good coordination from the M duo on Black Dragons in the 2v2, using the smoke to deny a plant and then using the gun from Machina to be able to shut down some of those players that were running deeper. I was surprised how heavily they were willing to fight kind of in that early to mid rounds. They were really contesting towards the mezzanine, towards that breach that was happening on the mask wall. Ended up going in their favor. They ended up trade all the way down to the 2v2. Could have been a little scary if NIP had come out on top in some of those gunfights. In fact, if you include the fact that Fantasy was a non-factor in that round, it kind of was NIP coming out on top of the fights, equalizing the man count from a position of disadvantage. But still nice to see Black Dragons on top from that. I did like their defensive setup. That Kiba late round, really, really cool stuff too. We'll probably have to use that one in ranked because that is very annoying to try to clear past. We saw them trying to walk in and deal with it. Go up 1-0 on the defense, and as we've been saying so far, you want to see the defense get off to a strong start. I was worried that this game would look like maybe the last game we just watched, Parker, between Los and Furia, but with Black Dragons on such a strong start, it gives me a little bit of hope that we won't be getting a similar game to that.
Results have been very, very close to what we saw out of stage one, right? FaZe and ENX were 7-1 in stage one. Same result, but 7-2 the scoreline for that match. Loud beat 9Z 8-6. Same result, except this time done in regulation as Loud 1-7-5, so just scaled back a little bit. Furia 7-1 over Los in stage one. Here it's 7-2 in stage two, and same result again. All of the teams that won back in stage one have done the same here. Now, the losers have gotten about as close or maybe a bit closer. So that means in this matchup, if that trend line holds, NiP should be the favorite to win. Black Dragons needs to get close early on to keep that close, especially because of the side swap. None of the games in stage one were played on layer. They were played across a bunch of different maps. Here, it's a pretty even field for all these squads. Black Dragons lost in OT to NiP back in stage one. Again, when we talk about point totals and the impact they have later into the stage, NiP finished in third place with 16 points. If they had done a victory over BD in regulation, it would not have impacted the standings, but you still want to get every point you can possibly get. So if you're either of these teams, you don't want to go to OT unless you are the losing team, and then your only way out is a victory through overtime.
Really cool setup being played by Black Dragon on the top floor here, in the mid floor, I guess you could say. Both a Tatanka and a Zombie being used to hold down Armory. Now, it will be cleared by NIP, but it took them so much time. They're just getting into it now, and there's still 5 players that will be alive on the bomb site for a strong late round execute. Soft Breach is strong on the side of NIP too, though. They're starting to use some of these operators like Sledge and Ram to rip the floorboard. Basement can get a little cramped sometimes on layer when you've got 5 players down here, which is why you're seeing some players kind of extend into filter. Maybe not the best of locations to play, but you can't play too close to your teammates when these floorboards are being ripped up. 45 seconds for this push. There's one thing I can say for sure, Parker, it's about to get chaotic.
That's what happens when everybody's still alive and there's not a lot of time left. This was a sticking point, if you recall, for Furia in the most recent matches. Great coordination to flush out these 2 players from Black Dragons, but they've not claimed Rare in his spot. Still, they will take 2 down. Next up is the Tachanka of Hornet, who tears through Hates, exchanges some of his HP in the process, and has some Molotovs that can work for denial. They won't deny Cons, though, as he's halfway to the defuse kit. Nitro Cell from Rare does work, but the objective still goes down for the attackers, and NiP has only 1 player to find to take the round and put it in the win column. Miracle crouch walking his way away from the bomb site, but he's a bit too slow and spotted by a couple sets of eyes. Khan's credited with the kill, and NiP answers back, tying things up.
Talk about an answer. A fast push into filter from both Fantasy and Wizard, making really good space for their team and then starting to open things up vertically as well from those players up above. It was the vert pressure that forced some of those players in towards filter that didn't allow them to play in office in the bomb site where they wanted to be. And then that kind of opened the door for the entry players of NIP to then capitalize on it. Really clean push. I was a little worried about the clock. I was a little worried about how many players they would have to go through. I was a little worried about the util still on site too for the defense. A couple of Nitros were still there. Mira Windows, Kibas, Tachanka. There was a lot to deal with, but NIP just rushed through and had no issues with it. Very nice push coming out from them, and it's very clear we got a ball game.
I was never a layer enjoyer. going to go on record here and say that, particularly the early layer games that we were casting, I thought the map was just a bit too big. I wasn't particularly excited with some of the executes. I thought there was a little bit too much discovery and roaming that was being done that often led to less action than on some of the tighter, more chaotic maps. But I will let you to know that I have changed my opinion, and I'm a certified layer enjoyer. The reason why I think I like it is, or the reasons why I think I like it, Jesse, are actually the same reasons why I disliked it to begin with. With it being a big map, teams have actually been much faster to get in the building and take up parts of the map that are unheld by defenders. It often leads to earlier action in unpredictable and chaotic spots, which is just enjoyable. And because the map is so big, there's a lot of leeway that teams have in how they want to go about attacking these bomb sites. It has taken me some time, but I'd like to be on the record to know that I changed my mind.
Welcome to the right side, Parker. Welcome to the correct opinion. I've always been a layer enjoyer. Anytime we get a new map in the pool, to be honest, I like seeing the creativity, the new stuff coming out. That certainly hasn't stopped as layer has continued to evolve. I think we've seen some really cool stuff on this map, even just today, with some of the new strategies coming through, with Ying being played quite a bit. That new secondary on Ying has changed things up a little bit. Lead shotgun coming out a little bit more than what we've seen in the past. It's not drastic changes or anything, but so cool to see the map evolve and grow as the meta does the exact same. One thing that's always stayed the same is how important top floor is for a bunk's briefing defense. Only one player inside the bomb site, just as we've seen throughout the day on this site. Only Ask in the site now, and he's playing a dangerous game. He has no idea Hates is staring at the back of him. Not quite aware of his angles. He should have known the wall was open. It's not subtle when Thermite goes for a breach like that, but regardless, keep his head, will have the anchor position.
Noticed a lot of these teams that have played on layer today have taken very long range engagements. I mean, it is a long map, and I mean, if you're Ask hitting those shots like they just did on Nepino, well, by all means, continue to go. He'll find less success on the second target, as that's a shield, as Blitz was absorbing most of those bullets. Look at the chaos that's unfolding right above Ask. He feels like he might be the only player inside of the server, and he's chased off at the spot from the Blitz, right into the waiting arms of Hates. Great clear out from Ninjas in Pyjamas, and they've got control of the bottom floor of this bomb site, but there is technically a second floor of the site that's being watched right now. Wizard taking some serious damage. Magically, Ninjas in Pyjamas are able to get that diffuser down with 8 players still alive, both teams having lost 1. Nip in worse shape HP-wise, but they now just need to ride out these 30 seconds to claim the round. Turns out Ask was the only player from Black Dragons holding down the fort. There goes the drop and a missed opportunity from the Blitz. They managed to do some serious damage to these defenders, and a follow-up now as Cons and Hates get all the kills. Once Ask fell, everything else collapsed around him, and Nip take the lead.
Absolutely brilliant shield round coming through from Cons, taking the space in the site, forcing the kill onto the one anchor, which was Ask. Didn't quite get credit for it, but pushed him back into the sightline of his teammate. Got the plant down in an unpredictable spot where it wasn't being watched from up above, and then in the post plant, able to do enough to slow them down, cause some chaos. Really good stuff from Cons. There's a quote from Cons from stage 1, which I've mentioned a few times on the cast, but I just love it so much, where he said, "I hate playing shields, but it's the meta, so I've got to do it." And it just always brings me back, because like, you might not enjoy this playstyle, but he is so good at it, and it really does lead to a lot of success for NIP. Enough success that Black Dragons feel they got to take attack time to try to find some way around it. Both in this game and in the one we just watched between Furia and Los, we saw teams commit to this very heavy top floor hold with 1 guy in sight, 4 guys up above, a very default standard meta way to hold this bomb site. And both times we saw that, we saw an attacking team, first Furia, now NIP, really abuse that fact and get a plant down in the site, despite there being still 4 players up above who aren't facing too much pressure. It makes me wonder if we might see teams start to play a little bit more on the bomb site for a map like this, or at least maybe more on the first floor where they can go for some flanks around green or try to have some kind of an impact. Because I just feel like a lot of the times we watch that mid floor and the players aren't able to do their job, which is deny the defuse kit. it'll be something for the teams to think about and decide how they want to hold going forward. But this is a bit of a trend I've noticed throughout the day.
It's always hard to pick up on this stuff when we're in the early days because so much of the strats that are being used by teams are raw. The one thing that you and I don't have that some other duos have, and most notably the desk does, for example, Fresh is a former coach, Alfam is a former player, we don't have any experience ourselves in the server. So when we watch things, we don't see it from the perspective of a former player or a former coach. We see it from with a completely different set of eyes. You see it with more of an analytical side. I see it more from an entertainment, storytelling, and drama perspective, which means naturally we're going to miss stuff that some of the more experienced commentators, irrespective of their role, will pick up on. So just something small just to note, but it is enjoyable, and I will say, today, I've been enjoying listening to our desk run through just about everything that's been going on. What on earth was going on there from Hates?
Ends up going down to Machina and a bit of a big kill. The bomb site is still being hunted for. It's down in the basement, and NIP are doing their best to try to get in the map and make some bit of an impact there. Logic bomb goes off, but I'm not sure if it's finding a whole lot. There's not a ton of movement on the side of NIP. They're standing around and are not really able to work any of these frags. Losing Hate seems to have really thrown a wrench into this whole push.
Black Dragon's got that early entry onto the sledge, maybe throwing a spanner in the works and then immediately backing up. Logic bombs didn't really find much success. The second logic bomb will be online in a moment. Tons of utility on the side of NIP, by the way. They've still got all three of those death marks from the Deimos. They're chock full with the boogie drones. There goes the last logic bomb, I assume to aid an entry to the map. At this point, you shouldn't be struggling to get inside the map. There's over half of the round gone. If NIP is using this for entry, then I fear that this might be the end of the road. Ass guns down Pino, and now the ascent up yellow stairs has not net any success. As Miracle flattens Fantasy, and now the Shield of Cons finds himself in a rough spot. Both the Blitz and the Monty ban means you don't really have a lot of options here. We've been very critical of teams that try to make Fuse Shield work because so seldom does it seem to. Cons with a very nice pick. He was very successful as Blitz in the previous round. He won't have that operator at his disposal, so instead, he'll have to go with something a bit less conventional. Black Dragon still doubled up in numbers with 40 seconds left on the clock. They can just sit and wait as NIP brings the diffuser to them.
Yeah, only one guy above, so 3 in sight. Still a man advantage if they do just try to hold this from the anchor, and then Ask will have a vertical angle. Again, planting with a shield, sometimes it's tough to deny from above, but plenty to work with, and the angle blocked off from the castle from missile too. This is... Man, they just can't even get into sight, Parker.
Yeah, I mean, I think they really struggled to get inside the map in the first place. Things have gone completely sideways for NIP. They'll lose Cons, and what little is left of Wizard is now in the same spot inside of lockers, and he's tucked and put away very neatly by Machina, who had a great round. Got the very first pick onto Hates, which might have been the entire reason why NIP's push was derailed in the first place. And then he cleans up as the last two players from Ninjas in Pyjamas wander aimlessly near and through the bomb site. Pretty even across the board. Now, again, based on the way that this map is played, 3 rounds should be bare minimum for the defenders. That means Black Dragons have almost hit that mark. If NIP can win another round here and squeeze a 3-3 first half or even a 4-2 half for NIP, they'll be in great position when the side swap comes in. I know you've heard it a couple times if you've watched matches 1 and 3 as they were also played on Lair, but it bears repeating. Lair is a defender-sided map. We expect the defenders to do well, not by much. A 3-3 or a 4-2 scoreline is about as much as you want to expect unless there's a big imbalance between these teams. So NIP already getting to 2 rounds on attack. They're ahead of what we should expect of them. It wouldn't be uncommon to see, say, a 4-1 for Black Dragons where NIP wins the second round and then we swap sides.
Especially given that you are going against Black Dragons. I'm using stats from stage 1, and Black Dragons have changed a couple players, so this might not hold true to the current Black Dragons, but in the last stage, they were the worst attacking team in the South America League, winning only 1 in every 3 attacks. So you kind of have to think if Black Dragons are going to win a game, especially versus a tough opponent like NIP, they will need to rack up the rounds on their defensive side. They could still do that with a 4-2 split, but you definitely wanted to be seeing maybe a bit more of a dominant first half if you're a Black Dragons fan. I do really think that bringing Ask back onto the lineup might change that stat around, and I expect them to be a better attacking team in Stage 2 than they were in Stage 1, but even still, you don't love the trend of having to recover from the worst stat in South America.
Something can fall out of a basement window.
It's Vigil versus Nook in this round too, by the way. I'm not sure if they'll actually come into contact, as they seem to be in slightly different parts of the map, but the push from NIP, again, focused on operations, where Azami tends to be brought. She's actually quite far back inside the Mez hallway already, terrified of what this Glass Smoke combo could do, but they give up nothing for it, and so this position will be taken by NIP. They only have a Thermite for hard breaching, so if they want to get the mask wall, it's going to be kind of risky.
Down goes Hates yet again. That's rare on that bottom floor roaming. Second time in a row that Hates has been on soft destruction duty and has found himself with very little to show for it. Pino's also been dropped, by the way. Khan's realizing that there's still plenty of defenders left and the jig is up, has to get off the defuse kit. Nip has got one kill. They've been swept away by Black Dragons, who've killed everybody except for Wizard, who's now going to get blocked out by both gas and a never-ending stream of Kiba barriers. Big round from Rare as he gets the final kill. The first kill and the final kill. We saw that with Makina in the previous round. And those two previous rounds, the round we just saw and the round before that, made Nip look like a bunch of chumps, if I'm being honest. It was quite a bad entry across the board. And I do have to wonder how much of that is the Blitz ban affecting them.
That's a great point. I mean, they did really enjoy playing those shields. Is something that I think NIP have been extremely strong with throughout their time in Siege, at least since this season started. That one, for me, just does come back to Rare, who got his 3K. He only had one frag before that round, but being able to win a 1v2, he was the only person down below. He kills both the Buck and the Nook, who were tasked with cleaning him up. That's a big deal, being able to find both those operators without losing your own life and then returning to the site. I think as soon as they lost those two players down below, NIP started to panic a little bit. They forced a plant at like a minute 30, and then they just died to the first piece of plant denial that got tossed at them. So bit awkward to come out from them. You do kind of have to point a spotlight at Pino as well, who was one of those two players down below that ended up dying to Rare, yet to get on the board. A veteran of NIP who's been on this roster since he was 17. Don't look into that too hard.
That's what, a year younger than you, Jesse?
Yeah, half a year, 6 months.
Give or take.
Yeah. Unfortunate to not see him performing to his usual standard.
There's been a couple changes with secondaries, just from the most recent patch that we saw, and flexibility that it's come with in regards to operators. You're obviously going to be bringing shotguns for a lot of that site setup, secondary shotguns distributed a bit more liberally, more super shorties out there. You've also got that new secondary machine pistol that is deceptively good and has been used as a primary on a couple operators. On attack, the big one has been Sledge. Back we see Sledge with the shotgun. As a defender, though, it's been Pulse. A lot of Pulse play with the shotgun in pocket and then the secondary machine pistol to do some serious damage. We've seen it in both leagues that you and I have casted. No real changes made to Blackbeard other than some nerfs across the board, but his prominence is still quite high, and Khans will get the first pick onto Hornet. That is a great sign for Nip. The last couple rounds have been so bad, they need to take wins where they can get them.
Another pick now coming in from Fantasy, taking down Ask, a two-man advantage. Black Dragons are trying to play more players towards this middle floor. They maybe are making that adjustment I was suggesting after they lost this bomb site in round 3, but it doesn't seem to be doing them any favors. Maybe this site is just a nightmare to hold on, and so it's always going to be attacker favored. Fantasy is not going to stop. Finds the head of Rare, as that's now another one. Pino to Machina, and it's all on to Miracle to clutch up the 1v5.
When it rains, it pours for both of these teams. I mean, Nip was in this position for the last 6 minutes, and now it's Miracle's time to try to live up to his namesake and experience one of those. That would be awfully nice. I do think it's somewhat funny that the only player that's taken damage on the side of Nip is the guy who died early in the previous 2 rounds of Hates. All of Nip survives that in what is a flawless finish to the first half for Ninjas in Pyjamas, as both teams achieve 3 rounds, no closer to a conclusion. Based on the numbers, that has to be a good thing for Nip, given that their expectation was 2 to 3 rounds. So maybe just slightly over exceeding expectations, but I think it's more of a wash. This second half could also go 3-3, and then we need OT to settle the score. We'll see if operator bans have any real impact on whether or not we think defenders or attackers have an upper hand.
The couple of games where NIP played Lair domestically in Stage 1, they ended with a 77% defensive win rate through 13 rounds. So they are very proficient on Lair, and in fact, they're 5 for 5 defending the top floor. Those stats don't include third-party tournaments, so there's still more to look at. But regardless, they are a great defensive team on this map. They choose to ban out the Deimos and the Ying, which, if I'm not mistaken, is the exact same bans we saw in our last game between Furia and Los on the attacker side. Definitely got to see that Deimos and Ying getting removed individually quite often. And then Azami plus the Kaid. You were just talking about how we haven't seen a lot of Azami. I think this is, I don't know, it's interesting we're getting focused down on Lair. She can be very good for operations, but elsewhere on the map, she doesn't see as much play. You're not holding the top floor.
Keep an eye on the attacking lineup as well. Haven't seen a lot of Grim get played by Nip, so that'll be one operator making a new-ish appearance.
Bomb located by attackers. 10 seconds left.
I like this mirror window from Hate on the outer mask wall so that you can start to deny it. When teams start to ban operators like Kaid, you've got to get a little creative when it comes to keeping the walls closed. The Mira is typically the way that people will go. If you only bring a thermite, of course the Mira can just pop and will deny the thermite from even going down where it needs to. Forces attackers to bring things like an Ace or a Habana at that point, but even if they do that, you can then pop the window and start to toss out impacts or nitro cells. Going to present a new challenge for Black Dragons we'll have to get through, especially because they only have can openers. They probably just can't push that direction now.
I don't know if Machina shot the sniper on the side of glass, so his presence might still be a mystery to the defenders. It won't last long, though. With Nip's bans, by the way, it will open Black Dragons up to playing a greater number of shields, as no shield is banned at the moment, but the only one being brought by BD is the Blackbeard. Deimos and Ying are obviously paralyzing operators that are very difficult to deal with, and they put you in terrible positions unless you have the tools to deal with it. That is an ego swing by Hates, but I mean, my God. When Hates is on, he can easily hit those shots. It's been a coin toss as to whether or not he's on so far today, but a 6-4 scoreline in his role is pretty good, and he shut down Hornet, who, playing Grim, might not be full of Hornets, but those bees will find no success.
I think it was Fresh on the desk talking about just how aggressive Hates can be as a player, and we are seeing that now. The second they get onto the attack, or onto the defense, making some of these big swings, now he will be top fragging his team, tying with Fantasy. Pushing through green has been stalled by the fire, and Nitro as well, just a half HP to the Blackbeard. The Deimos down below is causing a lot of problems. The Buck, I should say, from Ask, starting to make these defenders move. But the fire is now running out, and so these players inside of Green Hall are going to start to make their push.
Right now, obscured by the smoke. Rare is ready to emerge at some point. Gas canisters right now in front of Miracle's eyes, but nothing really going off there. No gas remaining for Pino. They've smoked off the wrong area, and now Rare feels like he has impunity to walk on up, backed up by the glass of Machina. This can be quite the surprise for the defenders of Nip. Not sure if they're aware of this. Not like the smoke of Pino playing a small jiggle peek. Black Dragons at risk of being bogged down here. They are toying with this bomb site, Jesse, but they've wasted now about 30 seconds without accomplishing all that much. They did sit through the utility, so at least when the execute comes down, there will be less in the way of them running into the bomb site. The fire will linger in front of them as that's Cons proudly putting down those Goyo canisters earlier, keeping Black Dragons at bay. The 4 players from BD look to storm into the bomb site with Ask there to follow up, and they are met at the end of the weaponry by Nip. 1 kill for Ask, but he's answered immediately by Pino, and Nip, hang on. Black Dragons had no clue what to do in those final 40 seconds, and boy did it show.
So much utility that they could not get past. The Goyo canisters, a huge problem for Black Dragons. The Toxic Babes, some of them didn't quite land where they maybe needed to, but the first one certainly did, and that definitely caused some more pause for Black Dragons as they were making their way earlier through the Green Hall. And then even just the mirror window that was looking from our 6 room into storage. I mean, that's continuing to put pause into the feet of Black Dragons, where they're maybe just getting a little bit nervous about what they're seeing. They had some good tools, right? Rare on the Blackbeard, but he was taking a bit too much damage to grab that space all by himself. Ask down below on the Buck honestly didn't do much. He was the only player to get a kill, but he kind of needed to be supporting his team from down below. He was trying. It's not like he was out of position, but just couldn't get the angles that he was trying to find. Playing on that Buck down below, rocking it with the glass, just not really working out, unfortunately. Bit of a tough push from Black Dragons, but the good news is that's the toughest bomb site on the map. You won't have to attack it again for a couple of rounds. You can load into these next couple, and I think keep your head on your shoulders. But strong start to the defensive side for NIP.
Again, Nip is just such a mystery to me. They have great looks, and then they go and they do things, and you have to ask yourself, what is happening? It doesn't matter if it's Julio, Kamikaze, and Psycho as the core of this team. It doesn't matter if it's, Psycho, Musi, and Pino. It doesn't matter now if it's Wizard, Cons, and Pino, who've been the long-standing core of Nip, which is a crazy thing to say, that Pino is now this veteran on Nip, because I remember when he made his debut on the team. But I suppose there are just some players that are like that. You've got streaky players. The idea is that you don't want to build an entire team around them. I feel like a lot of times both Nip and Liquid have missed that memo. And it just ends up with you have some really terrific highs, but then it's hard to replicate them. Consistency becomes a bit of an issue here. Either way.
Hates hears a blitz and decides that he wants absolutely zero part of that. I think wisely. Got a stronghold over towards Missile and Toxin. The Banshee gets shot out. Now should be seeing some fire grenades come from Hates. Rare's gotten a lot of space, but this has come at the cost of really no top-down pressure. Minute 45 to work a plant, but if somebody can just deny it from top floor, specifically Fantasy, it doesn't matter how fast you can get into the bomb site.
Hates will shrug off that explosion. Still has 20 of those Molotovs ready to fire in the Shumika launcher of Tachanka, holding a long-range angle. Do keep in mind, maybe people have forgotten that the removal of most magnified optics have set defenders into a position where they have to take long-range engagements with things like the hollow, the red dot, and so on. It would explain why teams are being a bit more aggressive with the way that they challenge entries, because they can't sit as far back and rely on a couple operators. We saw that same shift when the 1.5 scope was removed just a couple seasons ago. First bit of action, Jesse. Fantasy taking down Rare, and he might have another, but he's outdueled by Hornet. Nip could have blown this round wide open, but missed a golden opportunity on that second kill.
On a logic bomb, he completes the flank. Here's a great swing from Pino to shut down Machina, the pinch player, coming in from the back towards Stock. Now that's 2 really important pieces of the puzzle gone for Black Dragons. They've got to salvage it somehow. Ask up above, once again playing on the verts, but he's shut down too. Miracle and Hornet now in the 2v3.
Oh, and Hornet got an opportunity there. Saw a second player as well. Will now need to work with Miracle. No utility remains. 1 pocket EMP likely won't have much effect. Meanwhile, there are yokai drones in play. Gets shot out immediately, but there's a second, and Pino can capitalize off the information as well. Hornet with 5 seconds left, even though he has the diffuser. He doesn't know where that yokai is. He's running out of time, and he'll have to go for a gunfight that he doesn't end up making. 3 players still survive, but the timer gives it to Ninjas in Pyjamas, as Black Dragons were unsuccessful in planting the diffuser. 2 very quick wins as defenders for Nip. On the favorite side of Lair, I'm getting the same vibes I got in our first and third matches, Jesse.
I didn't even realize there was an echo being played that round until the very end. There was so much other stuff going on, and the focus was honestly kind of linear from Black Dragons. They had the majority of their players coming in locker ball, coming in missile. That got flanked somehow, despite a logic bomb going off, and the fact that you had a drone on Fantasy just moments before. But flanks and kills your blitz is a really bad start to the brunt of your push. The one pinch that came through was Machina, who ended up getting slammed by Pino. Maybe if Machina goes in filter instead of in through stock, he can shut down cons on the Echo, but it's not the route he chooses and not the result that he gets. And then the only other kind of dimension to that push was Ask, who was up above and was initially trying to roam clear, then was playing verticality, and he just got shut down. That's 2 out of 2 attacks now where Ask has either been directly above or directly below the bomb site, and I fear has not had a great impact. If you can play more of those vertical roles going forward, you can have a bit more utility for the team, because it feels like every time he's either just being dodged and not really able to support his team, or in the previous round, he's just getting outcooled.
I know we've talked about it, and I know it seems like, for somebody like me in my role as a play-by-play, I'm not really given a lot of analysis. Though Rainbow Six is a game with so much analytical time and so little action that both casters need to be able to talk about things other than play-by-play, because there's really only about 30 or 45 seconds in a given round of Rainbow Six where you need dedicated play-by-play. The rest of it is things like exposition, storytelling, narratives, stats, analysis, color work, all that sort of thing. And of course, energy management. Not that I'm here to teach people how to cast, but basically that's the way it goes.
I'm taking notes.
I'm so glad to hear that. But there are times where you can have all the strategy put forward, and your strategic depth is far greater than your opponent's. But if there are 2 gunfights that just don't go your way, you can't control recoil, you get jump scared, you don't manage your bullets correctly, and you have to go for a reload, there goes the whole round. You can have the best plan in the world, but the moment that you get punched in the face, it's hard for you to remember to stick to that plan. And we've seen that today. We see that in almost every single day. It's the teams that can bounce back and adapt to getting punched in the face and immediately regaining their footing and composure. Those are the teams that tend to go deep into events and most of the time win it. So far today, it's been Nip who's been able to adapt a little bit better.
NIP have witnessed all the defensive teams fail with the 4-1 setup on this bomb site, so they've gone for the 5-0 setup with no anchors on site and everyone up above. Does seem to be doing a lot for them. The top floor player from Black Dragons hasn't really found anything. You lost your ace, which is a critical component. Now, I mean, these angles just aren't favorable for the attackers at all. Just a painful gunfight for Miracle to be trying to take. Fantasy is heavily advantaged in this position, and as he's distracting Miracle, he's covering for his teammates who can now all focus on denying the plant from up above.
It's just expending bullets left, right, and center as Hornet has a read on Pino's position, but they've been whittled down on HP that they can't really take these engagements. Fantasy will rush through those tracks. Stinger's almost finding a 3rd kill, tearing through Ask after claiming Miracle and Hornet. Black Dragons on their back foot. Nip poised very well to take match point. With only 5 seconds remaining, BD trying to cut their way into the bomb site, but it's a hopeless endeavor. Machina wanting fights above, but he doesn't find it. Pino and Wizard shut them out. And again, Black Dragons mismanaging the clock, not knowing how to answer the defense laid out by Nip. And Nip are a perfect 3-0 since the side swap. They've guaranteed themselves a point and sit on match point.
And that was Machina's first round on Maverick since the season began, if you couldn't tell. Tough push in the end there, unfortunately. NIP, really good job holding down the top floor. Even if the Mav play worked out a little bit better, I don't think it changes the result of that round. They really did commit to that top floor clear despite every single defender being up there. But in the end, it just wasn't going their way. They couldn't find the frag onto Fantasy. And after he finished wasting all that time with the gridlock, he decided, okay, time for me to step up and go get my kills. And God, he certainly did that. Completely shut down that top floor push. No hope for those last two players. NIP on match point. I was really hoping, Parker, that the statistic of Black Dragons being the worst attacking team in South America would get flipped around with the addition of Ask and Miracle. But so far, they sit at let me do some calculus real quick. Carry the 0% win rate on their attacks.
I'm very glad that you needed to bust out some proper things to do number crunching, because I also was struggling to get to the real answer.
I actually did grab my TI-84.
Very important.
10 seconds remaining.
Not the prop work, but help the viewers with the joke.
Attackers are moving to defuse the bomb.
I'll just leave that there. You are the master of not responding to me when I make jokes, so now I have to give you some of your own medicine.
But you're kind of responding when you say I'm not going to respond. That is a response, right?
No.
Just think we can workshop this.
Not the way that I'm thinking. So
this push from Black Dragons is now do or die up against NIP, and they've got to do it on a full site rotation, which is the scariest part. As this map goes on, bomb sites will continue to unlock for NIP, and assuming they don't win, they will get to go to more and more sites as options. Ask will start his entry down below, but Fantasy's not done, Parker. Another big kill on the Aruni. He has been lights out on this operator.
Yeah, I mean, not ideal for Black Dragons when their main offensive threat through the first half is in the ground. I will say that for Machina, he did much better as a defender than he has so far as an attacker. What did we say about this secondary sidearm, by the way? Ask putting it to great use on Fantasy there. I assume the shotgun is the other gun that he has in his hands? Exactly. That's a tight corner being held by Hates. That Scorpion might as well be shooting blanks for how many bullets you need. He's lined up yet another, just misses the head of Miracle. A big gamble on the side of Nip. I suppose they look at the numbers, they look at the situation, they look at the time, and they say that's a gamble that we can make. And now they will trot back to the bomb site. Just maneuvering back ever so slightly and littering the way with Toyo canisters, 3 gas canisters in pocket for Pino, and Legion mines to be thrown out by Wizard. I like the tools that Nip have at their disposal for the final minute of this round.
And Black Dragons, I'm worried about a stall at the moment. All 3 players relatively disconnected. Hornet over towards Ops. This wall is still closed. That's why Cons is happy to play here. Obviously, the one he's staring at is open, but the wall behind him. They're going to start to group up now. The wall will be opened, and he will be forced to start to make a move. 2 players Ops. It's going to have to be a smoke plant just inside the wall, but with 3 Toxic Babes, 2 Impacts, and a Goo, good luck with that. Somebody's going to have to go deep into the site and start killing players if they want any hope of planting.
I mean, you can't mismanage the clock again, or else that's the ball game. Black Dragons have really struggled with Nip's passive play after that ensuing fight. They don't really know what to do with it. Rare will get choked out by the first gas canister tossed by Pino. 15 seconds left and 2 remain in pocket. That's excellent for Ninjas in Pyjamas to blanket this bomb site. Rare won't have an opportunity to do it yet again. Miracle taking some damage, as does Rare. Down goes Cons, and Black Dragons will come to blows! But there's a flank! Down goes 2 members of Black Dragons. Hornet's the last one standing against Pino, who just needs to wait out the time. He will succeed, and Nip will take the match and all the points with it.